Good day, NFL fans. Welcome to the Vegas Veterans Winners Circle NFL Wildcard Weekend. This is week 18, actually week 19 of NFL action, and we are being brought to you by gamblersworld.net, where you have the finest core of sports bettors and handicappers in the entire country. Nothing but champions on this website, and two of them are with me here today. I am your host, Chip Chirimbes. Today's special guest, and each and every NFL week, Mr. Jim Feist, known as Mr. Vegas. Jim, a big-time Vegas winner, contests, and, of course, has set the tone in Las Vegas with the sports betting venue. Jim, welcome aboard once again. Big weekend for us in the NFL.
It's exciting. Thank you, Chipper. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's always great to have you. And, of course, we have Mr. Paul Bovi. And Paul, of course, is one of the big-time players out here in Las Vegas. And for those of you who don't know, he just came 1 week short in Survivor, the biggest contest in the world, $14.2 million to the winner. Paul, it was certainly disheartening to see you get beat last week. And there were a few heartbreaks this week as well. 8 people out of 14,260 survived the contest, and it will be splitting the $14 million.
Yeah, it was like climbing to the mountaintop and about, a few meters before the top, just crashing and burning. And it was tough, but you got to move on. And hopefully next year we'll have better results.
It was tough. I didn't want to talk to you last week about it because I know you were kind of despondent, and I imagine the emotions you went through with so much cash on the line and to just. At least you got annihilated, Paul. You didn't get beat the way Green Bay got beat. Those two poor guys that had the Packers that got eliminated this week. What heartbreak that was. 56-yard field goal at the buzzer. But, all right, let's move on to this weekend's games. We had this week, guys, there were 4 newcomers to the NFL playoffs, and there were 4 teams that were left out after having made it last year. San Francisco, Dallas, Cleveland, of all teams, and, of course, Miami. The newcomers... Denver, last to get in, 7 seed. Washington, the 6 seed. LA Chargers were number 5 seed, and so was Minnesota. Jim, they were talking about how important that number 1 seed game was, the final game of the year between Detroit and Minnesota. And you realize that 75% of the time, the number 1 seed has made it to the Super Bowl, and the number 5 seed, where the Vikings dropped to, has only been to the Super Bowl twice. So getting that number 1 seed for Detroit was really big, and Minnesota must be a little despondent having to go to L.A. on Monday night.
Well, if they go to L.A., because it might move to Glendale, Arizona, because of the fires. Right. We don't know that yet, and they're going to decide that. And by the way, prayers to the people in California. It's pretty bad what's going on out there. That was a big game. And when you have all the injuries and a long season that Detroit has had and suffered on defense, it's really good for them to have that week off. And they put on a show.
They were amazing. They really did a great job. Paulie, this Detroit team seems to be the favorite despite all these injuries, particularly on defense. But Goff has been outrageous, never gets a thought about an MVP, of course. But Detroit comes in the number 1 seed and does have a week off.
Yeah, I commend them. Yes, they've gotten over the injury situation, or at least last week they did. But in prior weeks, you could see they were struggling to stop teams, notably against the 49ers, who actually should have won that game if it wasn't for Brock Purdy throwing a couple interceptions, pretty bad ones at that. I think it was more about Minnesota imploding. Sam Darnold, there was a lot of regression there, open receivers, missed opportunities. Detroit, I don't think they're going to have an easy road to the Super Bowl, but certainly you would have to consider them the favorites given what they've accomplished this year. And certainly offensively, they are getting it done. But I think that being said, their offense is going to have to overcome their defense, and they're going to have to continue to score points, or they're not going to make it to New Orleans.
All right, thank you, Paul. I want everyone to know out there, we are gamblersworld.net, and we are our core of professional sports handicappers. Our games are for sale, our premium games. You can check the leaderboard each and every day and see just how we're doing. And we devote our lives to this. This is not a hobby. This is how we make our living with Jim Feist and Paul Bovi with me. One other interesting thing, which always happens at the end of the year in the NFL, is the hiring of new coaches. And names have been bantered about. I mean, here in Vegas, we need coaching, but Pete Carroll's name's been brought up. We've had Mike Vrabel, of course, Cliff Kingsbury. Hey, guys, how about John Gruden come back into Las Vegas? Do you think he has a shot at getting hired, Jim?
I have a sneaky suspicion that he might be blackballed for a while. I just don't know. It's happened before with other people. His name never comes up. Right. I don't think so, and at least not this year.
Paulie, any thoughts on this coaching carousel? I mean, they're mentioning Pete Carroll, Flores. They're bringing up some old ambers and ashes, trying to get some coaching talent. You know, Paulie, what's happened here is that we talk about the thinning of talent in the players. Well, that has to affect coaches too with expansion. The more and more teams you have out there, the less quality coaches that we have out there. And we've seen it this year, a number of total gaffes that these coaches make during play. We saw a number of times out here in Las Vegas with Pierce. What do you think about this new coaching situation out there? There are so many coaches that are available and so many spots are available as well.
Yeah, well, as far as Gruden goes, I'm going to agree with Jim because, you know, the tolerance level for something like that. And I should preface this by saying time heals a lot of things, but I don't think it heals everything. Right. So I don't think John Gruden is going to get a coaching opportunity at this time. But there's coaches that are hired that I don't believe should be hired. Yeah. You look at, to me, Raheem Morris. I mean, he got the nod over who? Vrabel, Belichick, you know, quality coaches, proven commodities. And now, do you keep them? Atlanta underperformed. Same thing with Antonio Pierce. He was more of an experiment. He got fired. Morris didn't. There were several others whose heads rolled. And, you know, it's interesting how these are going to play out because old school guys like Vrabel, who had a great run in Tennessee before 2 years, which kind of caused him to be shown the door, or do you go with that new blood and take a chance, which certainly worked out in the case of the LA Rams?
All right. Thank you, Paul. This is gamblersworld.net. Don't hesitate to give us a like. And as a matter of fact, each and every day, Gamblers World has a winner's circle hosted by Sean Higgs. We have excellent superstars on this program each and every day of the week. Mark Lawrence, Jim Feist, of course, here, Paul Bovi, Matt Fargo. We've got a slew of handicapping winners. So just log on, follow the by links, became a winner, give us a like, and catch the winner's circle each and every day. You know, guys, one last thing before we get into analysis of the final weekend. The bookies got it right. The bookies got it right with Denver, making them a double-digit favorite over the Chiefs. And where they got it wrong, they got annihilated with the Eagles against the Giants. Jim, how do you come up with a line like 2? I can understand the 10 when Denver's not going to play anyone. I mean, Denver's going to play and Kansas City doesn't need it. But how do they come up with 2 with Philadelphia over the Giants?
Well, you're thinking that nobody's going to play. I mean, you're talking about last week. That's a mess. That's a preseason week without enough players. In the preseason, you'd have 100 players. Right. And now you have 50 some, and it's really an impossible week to know what's going to happen. Right. And you really have to be very careful. I stuck with totals and did pretty well. The sides are a little more difficult because you don't know who the hell's out there. And you don't know what the coaching motivation is, if the coaches have any say at all over these players, because, you know, the Giants go out and beat Indianapolis a couple of weeks ago, and they cost themselves the draft choice. The Pats did the same thing. Well, now I'm not saying that the draft is all that great this year, especially at the quarterback level, but I wouldn't mind getting a good lineman or a defensive player or something else. It doesn't always have to be a quarterback. So the players don't want to tank, because what they're doing is basically saying, oh, let's go get a guy so I lose my job. because there's only so many guys on the team. So if you really bring in a good player, some of these guys that are on the team now are going to be bagging groceries the next year.
All right. Now, I think it's time we got to the games. This is what we've all been waiting for. Paulie, I'll start with you. Houston, by the way, is a seeded team that is an underdog at home. It's happened twice here already. And the Chargers are coming in hot, and the Chargers seem to be the big team that everyone's looking to play here. I haven't heard much people looking to back the Texans here. What do you think of the Charger line at 3 at Houston?
Probably makes sense, because the problem with the Texans is that they've been beset with injuries, notably to the offense. As we know, Diggs went down, then they lost another key receiver. Now they're going to be stuck with Robert Woods, or so it seems, lining up on the opposite side of Nico Collins, unless Mechie can play. Mechie is now questionable. Robert Woods, 30 targets this year, 20 completions. He's 32 years old. So I'm not sure they're going to be able to move the football on the strength of Joe Mixon. I don't have a lot of faith right now in Houston's offense. Probably the best way to play this game, and it's already showed up in the number, is to go to the low side. It opened at 44. It's now sitting at 42.5. The Chargers, on the other side, they lost 2 offensive linemen during the game. One of them, Slater, will be in the lineup. The other one is a question mark, and I think that's something to be looked at. They looked great against the Raiders late, and they did open up a lead and score 34 points, but they've been wildly inconsistent this year, and early on, they were really an under team. I think they went a string of 8 in a row that went to the low side. So probably the best way to play the game is to the low side. I'll probably look for a few props. Don't have a strong play here, but we'll see what happens.
Okay, Jim, home underdogs in this playoff situation that are higher seeds are 9-3. And that would give us Houston, of course. But there aren't too many people that are looking to play the Texans here at all.
Well, you are right about that. Stroud has had a regression year, but that may not all be his fault. I mean, the offensive line's been pretty bad. They've had, as Paul said, there's injuries at wide receiver. It's been a bad year for them. The only reason they're here is because the rest of their division is absolutely horrible. So they're here because of that. Now they're hosting a team that's actually better than them,
right,
and playing better than them. They're not. The Chargers aren't Super Bowl bound, in my opinion. They too much to go through, but in my opinion, they deserve to be the favorite. Now, would I lay 3 with them? No, I would not lay 3 with them on the road. That's a tough spot, especially when you look at history of the home underdogs. No, I wouldn't do that, but I do have a money line play on the Chargers.
All right. Thank you, Jim. By the way, team totals here. We have the Chargers 23.5, Houston's 21.5. Chargers only allowed 17.7 points a game. Their defense is pretty tough. Houston's defense is what kept them alive. They're only giving up 21 points a game, and they went 6-10 against the number. So, against the total. They only went over 6 times out of 17 games. So, your quarterbacking, of course, there was a lot missing there this year, Jim. It seems to be a little regression. All right, let's go to this other big favorite game on Saturday, the late game. It's on national TV at prime time, and we've got Pittsburgh going to Baltimore. And, Jim, what has happened to this Pittsburgh team? They're the first NFL team ever to get into the playoffs off 4 consecutive defeats. And here they are getting double digits now from the Ravens.
This is... We all know that Tomlin never has a losing season and all that stuff, but he does not put together a winning program, a winning program that goes high.
Right.
They can win more games than not because he plays good defense and he's fundamentally sound, et cetera, and he might have a good kicking game. But their offense is just horrendous. And I've said this before. They used to say, let Russ cook. Well, now it's time to cook Russ because he's done. Let's fry the guy, get him out of the league. He really can't do much. He never was the most mobile, but he was kind of shifty and he'd get you some yards and he'd hit those bombs and got away with that in Seattle for a while. The guy was great. That was under Pete Carroll. This is a whole new situation. Their offense needs a whole rebuild. I mean, and their wide receiver, their star wide receiver, is very emotional, drops the ball. He's always complaining. They need some help. They're up against it. However, there is a history between these two teams that somehow Tomlin keeps beating these guys, and giving them 10 points is no bargain. I don't think there's going to be very many points. I think it's going to be a defensive struggle. Pittsburgh is getting a couple players back on defense, which will help. But you're not going to stop Henry and Lamar. And, I mean, Henry's got over 19. Nobody talks about it, but he's got 1,900 yards rushing this year. That's been a big part.
Paulie, Baltimore comes in 4 straight wins. Thank you, Jim, by the way. They've gone over 7 of the last 10 games. But, Baltimore finally broke through and ended this little hex that Tomlin had over them. But, Tomlin hasn't, Jim, like you said, what you're getting to is that Tomlin hasn't won a playoff game in 8 years. He's had 5 straight losses in the position. So having a winning season has been fine, and a lot of clubs would love to do it and even get to the playoffs. But the Steelers haven't been able to perform in the postseason in almost a decade now. Paul, you think they have a shot to cover this number? It's awful big, and they looked so inept the last time they played the Ravens.
Look, double digits is a lot, and look, they're not going to win the game. Could they cover? Possibly. But look, Jim made the point. I've been a critic of Russell Wilson from last year. He's a lateral thrower. He does not throw the ball downfield effectively. Now, George Pickens didn't help him out on Saturday, because there were multiple drops. Balls went through his hands. But still, Russell Wilson had 2 good games with the Steelers. One of them was against Cincinnati, the first one, 29-38, over 400. He had a decent game against the Browns in that nationally televised snow game. Outside of that, it's been more or less 3 in a cloud of dust. Jim's right. This guy is cooked. So you run the ball, Pittsburgh does. Do you think they're going to be effective against Baltimore, which has a top run defense? Probably not. So you're relegated to throwing the football against a vulnerable pass defense in Baltimore, but can Russell get the job done? I don't think so. First game, I believe, was 18-16. It was the lowest scoring game. It was in Pittsburgh, and then I think Baltimore just blew them out at home. So here we are, back in Baltimore. I don't think the Steelers have a chance. I wouldn't be betting the under, because I think Baltimore could easily get to 27 to 30 points. So it's probably the only way to play it for me is either props, or if you want to play a 3-game teaser, you got Baltimore even. Find a couple dance partners. You can go that route.
All right, thank you, Paul. This Baltimore team has done it offensively. They've been all of a sudden this Lamar Jackson is putting up a lot of points. So you like in the game to stay under. And part of the problem with Russell Wilson is once he's lost his agility, he used to make so many plays when he was moving around, and he's lost a little bit of his agility, and I think he's lost his effectiveness as well. And I thought it was kind of not a joke, but bringing him to Pittsburgh in the first place after the years he had in Denver and this final year in Seattle, Paul had mentioned it, and even Jim, that his effectiveness just wasn't there. And surprised he even got to this point, but they have dropped 4 in a row.
You got to remember something. Denver's paying him like $30-some million a year. They paid him to get him out of town. Pittsburgh's only paying him $1 million a year.
Well, it was worth it for him because they got the playoffs without him.
It's a bargain test, the test case, but they got a bargain on it. But that's what they got. They got a bargain that's not going to pay off.
Here's what happened with that bargain. A guy stepped in last year that actually was waiting in the wings for 3 seasons in Mason Rudolph. He put up really nice numbers for them.
I know.
Tomlin cut him loose and rolled the dice with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. It wasn't a good gamble.
Right.
So I would pin this one on Tomlin. He's stuck with Russell Wilson, and they're going to go down in flames come Saturday. So
the thing about that franchise is the owners don't seem to care as long as they get a winning record. They don't go out and say, hey, we want to be Super Bowl champs. They don't build a team to win the Super Bowl.
And the running game is so important to them. And Najee Harris has been on and off. He's had flashes, and there are times when he's just not productive. Let's go to Sunday games now. We've got a few more games to go here, 5 more. Denver is going to Buffalo. Here again, we had what could have been a double-digit favorite. They're down to 8.5. I think they opened 9. Buffalo total dropped from 47 to 46.5. What do you see here? I mean, Buffalo is a strong favorite over a Denver team that people didn't anticipate being here. Jim, you got the rookie Bo Nix in his first playoff game.
The biggest problem I have is that you have a rookie going on the road into a tough environment. I mean, the weather isn't an issue. It's not bad. And plus Denver doesn't care about the weather anyway. But you got Josh Allen, they've been to the playoffs repeatedly year after year, done very well, almost beat the Chiefs a couple of years ago. This is a pretty good team. They're not a great team, but they're a good team. And I'm not knocking Bo Nix or Sean Payton or Denver or what they've done. I mean, but this is a very tough. You take a rookie and put him on the road in the playoffs in their first game. Statistically, historically, it is a bad bet. Now, it's a big number. So if you want to bet Buffalo, you might look at teasers and locking them up with somebody else if you don't want to lay over a touchdown. Or you could just go with it and lay over a touchdown. But that's the side that's going to win the game. It's like Baltimore. They're not going to lose the game.
Right.
The question is how many they win by.
Paul, both these teams come in here scoring. I mean, Denver was 11-6 to the over. Buffalo 11-5 to the over. Denver number 1 in special teams this year on kicks, and they beat Buffalo last year 24-22. I don't think that'll have any effect here. Bills number 2 on offense, scoring almost 31 points a game. Do you think Denver can pull it out or at least keep close with the number?
Well, put it this way. Jim's made a point. The number is fat. 9 points. Buffalo has given up 20-plus points, and I believe 7 of the last 9 games. One of the games they did not was against the Jets, and New York put up pretty good stats. Just couldn't crack the end zone for more than, they total 14 points. Yeah. But that's the Jets. I mean, this is a team that didn't punt against the Rams and only managed to score 9 points. So I'm not sold on Buffalo's defense. You can run against them. And one of those other games that they did not give up the 20-plus was against San Francisco in the snow, and the 49ers came out and they were running the football very effectively. You look to the other side, and you got a team in Denver that has given up 30-plus multiple times. They gave up only 13, I believe, to Indianapolis, thanks to Jonathan Taylor dropping the ball short of the goal line, which definitely turned the tide of the game. But you look at 3 quarterbacks in there, Joe Burrow, Herbert, and Jameis Winston, 400, and in the case of Herbert, it was 300. So 400 plus for Winston and Burrow, 300 for Justin Herbert. Total of, what was that, 1,100? Their pass defense is very suspect. So this is a game where, in my opinion, there should be some points. The weather, and I know because I'm in the Buffalo area, a couple hours away, hour and a half, and it is cold. But it's supposed to be warming up. When I say warming up, getting to the freezing level by the time this game is played. It'll be about 30 degrees, winds 10 to 15. So I think this is priced right to get into the 50s, and I would lean over the total.
Okay, both these teams are scoring, like I had mentioned before. Number 2 offense for Buffalo altogether. The last 8 times they've met Buffalo's got the money 7 of the 8 times. Now, this is a playoffs to make things a little bit more intense. So we'll see what happens there. All right, guys, don't hesitate to give us a like. We're being here we'll be here the rest of the NFL season. Jim Feist, Paul Bovi, myself, Chip Chirimbes, all Las Vegas champions and winners. And you can be a winner too if you follow the buy links and get Jim's premium premier plays or Paul's or myself's, and you'll become a big time winner. Interesting game here. These two teams opened the season, the mid game on Sunday in Mexico, Green Bay and Philadelphia. Philadelphia is certainly entering the playoffs a lot different this season than they did last year. Last year, they come in losing 5 of 6. Even the Giants beat them last year at the end of the year. And here's Philly now. They're favored over Green Bay at home, Jim. Philly at 14-3 has had a banner season since they were 2-2 at one time, and they've really turned it on the rest of the year.
Well, Philadelphia was in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. They did pretty well. They started last year off really great, and they crashed at the end of it. This year, they're a solid team. They run the ball well. They have a good defense. Jalen Hurts is definitely not a bad quarterback. He might be a B plus. Maybe he's not an A, but he's definitely. But now you got the concussion protocol, which he probably will be cleared for,
Right.
But there's been a regression when people come off the concussion protocol. There's usually like a 15% regression in their performance, but they can run the ball. And the thing about the Packers, they did lose Watson, their over the top guy, which spread out the offense a little bit and allow Love to hit the home runs. But they have other players. They're a well-coached team. They're a good team. But Love is a little bit careless. He makes mistakes. He's kind of like a Brett Favre, gunslinger type guy sometimes, and he does make some mistakes. I can't lay the number here, 4, 4.5, 5, whatever it is. Yeah. I just can't. I can't see it. The only thing I can say is they got 2 running teams here. The Packers and the Eagles run the ball a lot and effectively. And with Hurts having the concussion, he might be a little careful not to get hit, not to get slammed to the ground again. There might be more running than normal. And the Packers will probably do the same thing to protect from Love making the mistakes. So I think you'll do a lot of grinding of the clock. And I lean the under on this game.
All right, Jim. Thank you. Shaquan, you mentioned the running game for the Eagles, and this is what they're going to look and try and control the ball. Shaquan Barkley's had an incredible season. Oh. And believe me, everyone out there, he was just as good with the Giants, but just never got that opportunity. He was either injured or you had that decimated offensive line the Giants had. Didn't give him much room. But he is electric. Paul, we got the Eagles here. These two met in the 1960 NFL championship game at Franklin Field. That one's for you, Jim, as Vince Lombardi said he will not be held 2 yards short from a championship ever again, and he wasn't. Paulie, the Eagles here, strong favorites over Green Bay. Green Bay's lost their last 2 entering this one.
I don't really have a play in this game. Problem is with the Packers, you've got several guys on the injury list right now defensively. Right. We already know Watson's going to be out, but you got Quay Walker, questionable. He's their leading tackler. There's another player on there, third leading tackler, Jair Alexander, went on the IR, best covered corner. And then you really have to take a step back and watch the injury list on this game to really make an accurate assessment as to what's going to take place. I'm not an advocate with Philly. There's been times when Philly has come up a little flat. I don't like, you look back on Philly, look, Jacksonville was in the game with them. They have kept several teams in the game. Jacksonville, 28-23. Carolina, 22-16. Panthers almost beat them on the last play of the game. The receiver was open, dropped the ball. So I just don't like laying points with Philly. But Jordan Love, he has never fully gained traction this year. I expected bigger and better things from him off the latter part of the season last year, in which his passer rating was in the stratosphere. He only threw 1 interception, but he's been erratic, and I don't know how he's going to be on Sunday. So this is a game I'm going to take a step back on. Probably look for a prop, as I usually do. There'll probably be something available that piques my interest. But as far as a side or a total, no.
Yeah, it's tough here each and every week. These games, these numbers, these teams, who's showing up, who's injured is a key factor. Like you said, Green Bay got hot last year at the end of the year. They haven't quite shown that brilliance this season. Final game on Sunday, primetime game. Tampa Bay's at home. They're hosting Washington. Washington surprised at 12-5 this year, Jim. I think not too many people expected that big of an improvement.
Well, this is a Baker Mayfield game. I mean, the way he's been playing, he's playing at the MVP level. This team isn't loaded with a lot of talent like some of the better teams in the league, but the Bucs have been really strong. They've won this division a couple of years in a row. They got some players back on defense, which is going to make it a little bit different than what I had anticipated. I thought that there was going to be some people out, and they actually came back. It looks like they're going to play. You got another rookie on the road here with Washington, and I'm going to stick with that. And here you're not laying over a touchdown; you're laying a small number, even though Washington might be more competitive than what you see with Denver against Buffalo. I think the Bucs are the right side in this game, and I like the over, but I'm going to say this with a little bit of but here. With the players coming back on defense for the Buccaneers, it's going to make it a little harder for them to score than I anticipated when the line came out, because I thought those players might be out, and they're not.
Okay, Jim, if you have to cut out, we understand it's getting late for you. You have other commitments. Paul, Tampa Bay's won 6 of the last 7. The one game they got beat was at Dallas, and they're laying just a field goal here at home against a really surprising Washington team. Just Daniels has been great for them.
So, Jim mentioned the injuries. I'm actually not sure if several players are going to be in the lineup, notably Jamal Dean, who they have really Tampa Bay has struggled when he has been out of the lineup. Lamar Jackson had a perfect rating. Purdy had a 120, and he was out for 4 games. And in those 4 games, opposing quarterbacks absolutely lit him up. You've got Winfield.
He's playing, by the way.
But I want to check the injury list.
I just listened to Greg Cosell. He said he's playing.
Okay. All right. So, those are things I have to check, and thank you for clarifying that, Jim. But, as far as going over in the game, look, Daniels, to me, has regressed off his first 5 or 6 games. His average per attempt over the last 6 games has only exceeded 7 twice. He completes a lot of balls at a high percentage, but a lot of short throws. When he went out of the game on Sunday, they had only racked up 3 points. 3 points. Marcus Mariota came in, and he was the guy that spearheaded the offense. Ultimately, I forgot what they scored, but they all of a sudden, things changed. So I can't bank on the Washington to put up a lot of points here. I will say this: their defense off the first 5 or 6 games has improved. So the offense has taken a step back. The defense has taken a step up. And as far as Tampa goes, Tampa has beat up on weak sisters. I will say that I've been riding their overs. I had the over on Sunday against New Orleans. Had a sweat for that one. Prior week, 48-14, Carolina. Team totals over the number. That worked out. But I was not thoroughly impressed with them on Sunday. I mean, there was a point where New Orleans had run 33 plays to Tampa Bay's 11, and they were struggling a bit. I think they'll be able to run the ball against Washington, but I think this total is very fairly priced. In other words, if it was 46, I'd say yes. At 50, I have to say it's a pass, and I'll have to look at the injuries, see what I want to do with the game. And if those players were to be out for Tampa Bay, I'd probably look for the Washington team total over, even though Daniels has struggled. But I as Jim just said, it looks like they're going to play, so that's off the table.
Washington team total, by the way, is 23.5. So that's what
Chipper, I've got to run because I'm running.
Okay, Jim, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Good luck this week.
Catch you again next week, my friend. Bye-bye. All right, Jim has other commitments, so he had to run. We understand that. We were running a little bit late and a little over today. The final game, Paul, on Monday night, the Vikings, who really put themselves in a bad spot after winning 9 in a row, losing to Detroit. They go from a number 1 seed to a number 5 seed, having to play Detroit, going to the Rams here. And if they win here, they have to go to Philadelphia. So they've really dug themselves quite a spot here, the Vikings. And it all could have been different if they had won that game Sunday night against the Lions. But the Lions were much the best in that one for sure.
So, these teams hooked up a while ago, and it was 30-20. If you recall the game, and I do believe it was a similar situation, which Minnesota had come off a tough game. I think it was against Detroit, and they went in on a nationally televised game, and the Rams shocked them 30-20. This is a game that I could make a case for Minnesota. I want to say that Sam Darnold, that was an aberration as to what happened on Sunday night, because it better be, because there's no way they're going to win the game if it wasn't. But at the same time, I'm looking at a Ram team. They haven't been impressive this year at all. I mean, they've lost home games that they never should have. They've been wiped out. They were wiped out by Miami. They weren't competitive. And this has happened straight down the line. I mean, you look at that Arizona game a couple weeks ago. Arizona came into the game, had nothing to gain, and the Rams had to hold on for dear life at home, and they benefited by an interception that wasn't. So you can't get me on either side here. Yeah. I'm just going to take a step back on this one, maybe play it live, maybe look for a prop. But that's where I'm going to land.
All right. Thank you, Paul. There is one unique thing about this. The Rams are the only team in the NFL playoffs that have been outscored by their opponents this season. They did go 10-7, 9-8 against the number, but they have allowed 1.1 more points per game than they have scored. That's 19 points on the year. All right, I am Chip Chirimbes. This is Paul Bovi. Jim Feist had to depart. This is the NFL Wild Card Weekend preview from GamblersWorld.net. We are Vegas veterans, and we are here each and every week. Paul, I'd like to thank you once again, and good luck. And this coming weekend, there's some big games and big money out there. So log on, follow the buy links, become a winner at GamblersWorld.net. We have a plethora of the top handicappers in the country, most of them Las Vegas based, as a matter of fact. So good luck this weekend, and we'll be seeing you again next week. Paul, thank you very much, and good luck everyone out there.